All right, everybody. So, welcome.
Same voice in my head.
What's that?
Same voice in my head telling me
Yep. So, we're going to be talking about assignment 4 today, as well as a couple of things about next week. So, assignment 4 will just be going over the written materials today, and then next week on Monday is actually a holiday. So, we won't be having any lecture on Monday, since that's Memorial Day. The next lecture we'll be having is on the 27th. So if you did want to get a head start on the lab tasks, we'll be actually going over those on the 27th. Assignment 4's due date is actually going to be on the Thursday, not normal like Wednesday. So assignment 4 is not due till the 28th on Wednesday, or on Thursday. Oh, I just said it. Come on, man. We can see assignment 4 open all the way through Thursday. Sorry about that. And the finals are also happening next week. So you have two finals that are actually going to be due on Wednesday, and then two finals that are going to be due the same day that assignment 4 is due. So you're going to have to work a little bit to balance your time. The reason why I can't have anything open till Friday is because this is an immediate reschedule class, and I have to make sure that all the pass or fail grades are in by Friday. So one other thing with that, we will not be accepting any turn-ins past Thursday for assignment 4. So make sure you get that in before the deadline. All right. So without further ado, let's take a look at what kind of topics assignment 4 is going to cover. The first three that we have are going to be wrapping up our full-on game loop. Right now we did start that towards the end of assignment 3 where we could press play and it loads another level. We're going to keep going with that same kind of thing. We're going to add a credits menu to actually list who created the game, and then that'll automatically transition back to the main menu. Then we go with part 2 where we actually set up winning and losing conditions for when our character wins the game or loses the game. And finally, part 3 wraps it up a little bit more with actually showing whether they won or lost the game. And we're going to have different results shown on screen because there's usually different options. For example, when you lose a level, you're usually presented with a screen that says, do you want to retry or quit to main menu? Versus when you do win a level or beat a level, you just go to the next level. Or once you win the game, you go to the credits. So that'll be all wrapping that up. And if we take a look at this, right here I have an example with all the documents finished. If we go ahead and play this right now, you'll notice I'm playing straight from level 1. I didn't play from the main menu. And we can take a look at what happens when I try and win the level. Lets us know we won. And then it presents us with this screen saying you lose. I don't have a cursor on screen. I can kind of move it around and select those buttons. I don't know where exactly it is on those buttons, but so one thing to take into account when you are testing out the win and lose transitions, you definitely want to be playing from the main menu because the way our level loading works, our level loading assumes that you started out at level index 0, which is the main menu. So you typically start the game from here, start playing the game, and then if we try and win again, which as we mentioned in the previous lecture, is destroying all the targets is the goal of the game, you win. And then after a few seconds, it automatically transitioned to credits. It didn't have to click anything like that. Once the credits scroll off screen, should kick us back to the main menu. That's why it's called a loop, because we can continue to play the game again. We no longer have to exit the application just to play the level again. If we test out losing, that's when our player-controlled character dies. So if we make that guy dead, we can go ahead and we're presented with a you lose. So you lose does not transition to the credits. You lose should just show a retry option or a quit which will quit to the main menu. If we retry, we just load that current level again. If we go back through and this time press quit, it should be telling us to load the main menu. So that's the game loop all wrapped up. And our next section that we'll be working in is taking a look at how to expand something that we've created before. We've created the base projectile. We're going to create another type of projectile here. So we do have this in two separate parts. We have one part for creating the new type of projectile, which is considered a sticky projectile. And this projectile should stick to things as it's described. Then part 5 will actually go in to create a secondary weapon. So the secondary weapon will have additional functionality where we can have a secondary input to do something extra. And that ties in with the sticky projectile, because when you press the sticky weapon, it'll tell all those projectiles that are stuck to things to explode, kind of like a remote mine. We also deal with weapon switching and taking a look at how we can swap between what is our current weapon versus what all the weapons we have. So with this, let's take a look at that in game. In here, if I just shoot like normal, it's going to be just the normal bullet that does 1 damage each. If I press the 2 key, which I've pressed it, we see that my ammo's full. If I press 1 again, we see that each weapon has their own separate ammo, swapping back and forth. With the 2 key selected, we should now be able to shoot, and it will stick to things. Should stick to any floor object, thing like that, any level geometry as well. And we can see it even attaches and animates with the character that it attaches to. So if I press our right click, that's going to be our secondary fire option. It'll actually create an explosion. It'll explode all the ones in the level, and I happen to actually put them too close to the targets that killed them. But if we take a look at that, should explode every single one of them after we press right trigger. And it'll actually damage based on how far away from the center you are. So if I'm pretty far away from it, we take, looks like we did about 1 damage. If we're right up next to it and explode, we obviously took more than 1 damage there. Our health bar got a huge chunk taken out of it. So it does have damage fall off based on how close you are to it. And that's what that debug sphere is for, or representing the area of damage. Okay. Moving on from there, we're going to be taking a look at doors. I know you guys aren't quite sick of doors yet. So we're going to be doing doors. The reason why you've done doors so many times is because it's such a common thing in games that tests several different things, basic collisions, things like that. We also work in what is called the dot product. So if you remember one of the research assignments or ILAs, it did have you look up the dot product and gave a brief explanation of that. We're going to put that to a practical use here with a door. And what we do is actually create a door that does a bit of math and determines what side the character's entering from. So it just entered from that side, so it opened away. And the other one, if we come in from the other way, it always opens away from our character. So that we never have that problem of like walking up to a door and getting pushed back out of the trigger volume and stuff. I'm sure you guys probably played a couple of games where you've seen that happen.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, that definitely should never happen. So we've come up with a way of just doing a simple calculation. Is our character on one side of the door or the other side? And we'll always make sure it opens away from our character. Over here, we have, once again, taking a look at how to expand features and have different features talk to each other back and forth, or blueprints talking to each other. This one, when we walk up to it, it doesn't just open immediately. It actually asks our character if it has a key or not. Our character will tell it whether it does have a key, and it'll respond appropriately. If we don't have the key, it says, hey, a key's needed, lets the player know that something's needed. And we're just representing the key right here, just by this chest, which is a pretty bad key, but you can use any visual representation you want, even just a simple sphere or something.
What if the key is inside the chest? Then you're just taking the chest and the key at the same time.
Exactly. Yep. It was just one of the models that we had, so we threw that in there since this one doesn't have any of the other pickups added. Just make sure it looks different than the other pickups that you have. And now when we walk into it, asks our player, does it have the key? It does. We can go on through it. All right.
Can we use our own like pickup model or whatever, mesh?
Yes, feel free to use whatever mesh you want. Just once again, remember that I'm not really worried about how it looks. As long as it's functional, that's what I really care about.
Yeah, I know. I just I put together a simple arrow for like the speed pickup, just so it's different from the other pickups. That's all.
No, I specifically remember that because I think I graded it either this morning or last night. But yep, you're more than welcome to use any assets that you'd like. Just watch out for the size of any textures that you add, because those can ramp up size pretty quick. All right, so those are the two door sets. That's the door dot product, door with key. And then we can take a look at some platforms. So we create 3 different platforms here: a stationary, a single point, and a multi-point platform. So we just do the stationary and single point in that first part. Let's take a look at those. Right here, we have our platforms. We have our stationary platform. It's a super interesting one. It's basically just a box sitting in the level. And then we have the single point moving platform. We call it a single point moving platform because we have the platform start there, and then we just specify one point for it to move to up there. So it's got one target point in the level for where that's going to move to. And if we actually take a look at our level, we see that it does have this target point right here. That's actually where it's going to move to. So without changing any code, we can change this from a vertical lift to a horizontal movement, or place that anywhere in the world. And I didn't place that very well because I was at a bad angle, but it makes pretty nice, easy, modular way of setting up this platform.
What about those other 3 targets?
Those other 3 targets we'll talk about in a second. That's going to be the multi-point platform. So that's actually the next thing on the list. That's the wrong one. That is our multi-point platform. So this one works kind of in the same way, but a bit more complex. So we start off kind of simple, getting things moving, and then we go for the more complex. This is going to be using an array and actually looping through the entire array until it's finished. So we see we have these 3 target points over here. Our platform is right next to these others right here. We actually say what the points are right in the editor. So if we wanted to see what one of these points is and navigate to it, we can click on those. So let's make this move kind of in a zigzag. So I like it starting pretty much right there. Then we'll shoot it out over there, and then this one will end up over that way. So this one starts and it'll pause at each point. We have a specific wait time in the level to determine, or in the blueprint itself, to determine how long it's going to wait for. And it just keeps looping back through. Once it hits the end, it starts iterating through going backwards of the array. And we can add as many points as we want to really get this to be, let's say, like an entire tour around the level. If I duplicate this, move that one there, duplicate again, we'll move that one there, duplicate again, we'll move that one there. And then we got to make sure that our platform knows about these new elements. So how many did I add? 3. We want target point 5, 6, and 7. So if we play this now, it'll go through, go to that first one, and it'll actually go all the way around, and then once it hits the end, I think that was the end, and then it goes back through, just cycling through. So that's the platforms. And then our very last part of this assignment is going to be this toggle switch. So this is just showing how, once again, reinforcing that blueprint communication of how something can interact with another item. So we actually have this toggle switch tie in to our platform, our single point moving platform. And we have it so that when we press the button, it'll pause the platform wherever it's at. We see this toggle switch right here showing green on the button right now. Green means go, that means it's moving. When we walk up, lets us know, press F to interact. We press F, we see it turns to red and that platform's no longer moving. Press F again, and it continues on its normal loop. So these are two completely separate objects. Our platform itself doesn't know anything about our trigger. Our trigger does know that it's going to interact with the platform. So what this actual platform switch is doing is calling functions from our platform to pause and unpause as needed. So that's just going to show how those different objects can communicate. It's pretty common that you'd have some sort of lever tied into a door, things like that, or a simple button to start a platform moving. So wanted to make sure that that example setup got shown. So there's a couple of things that I did want to talk about for the blueprint specifically. Let me move that out of the way. If you noticed when I was working with the door, that door kind of moves pretty slow. That's pretty irritating. When you are working on the door, we're actually creating a timer and seeing how we can use floats just to track the current time and how long it will take that door to open. So in here, you have the event graph. Inside tick is where we're going to be updating our timer. We're just counting time up until we hit timer max. And that'll be our rotation timer that it uses for the actual lerp. So we're using lerp. I know we mentioned lerp before for a previous lab task. Lerp just takes one value, it takes two values and an alpha, which is basically a percentage. How much of A, how much of B do you want? 0 is going to be full A, 1 is going to be full B. So we take the current time over the max time, and as that's counting up, it'll get closer to B once it's finished. But one thing about that, so our max time, or our timer max, is going to be how long it actually takes for that door to open. If we do want it to be a shorter amount of time, we can just drop that time down here. Let's say it's going to take half a second to open. We can go ahead and change that. And now when we walk over to it, opens up quite quickly. Quickly enough not to really impede me when I'm walking through it. So that is how you can adjust the timer on it. One other thing that you'll want to watch out for when you're creating this, make sure that the trigger volume you have, your door trigger, is big enough for the player to actually fit in. If you have it really small, just right at the center of the door, you'll have some issues where the player during his animation might step out of that and the door will start closing on you. So make sure it is big enough. Think of like one of those pressure pad walkways that you have to walk up to the door and there's a big pad on the ground that is where it actually senses, or a little sensor up here that only detects a certain range. Make sure it is large enough to fit that character. All right. On the locked door, let's take a look at that. As I mentioned, the open door now, so this is showing inheritance once again. It's inheriting everything from BP door. So when BP door actually detects that, oh, there's a player inside, let's actually go to open the door. Before it just opens the door, it has to check and ask our character, do you have the key? If it does have it, then it goes ahead and opens it. Otherwise, it's gonna make those messages visible. Same as with the closed door. It's just adding some extra stuff to hide the message when the door closes, or when the player leaves the trigger. Other than that, that's about it for the document portion. Were there any questions or anything you guys wanted to go into a little bit more in depth before you attempted, or?
Not at the moment, but I'll probably be running into a few problems.
All right, then I just want to remind you that we will be going over the lab tasks in the live lecture, not till next Wednesday. So that is a while away. But if you do wrap up with all the material and want to get started on the lab tasks, you're more than welcome to just go at them, or I highly recommend checking out a recorded lecture from a previous month that might point you in the right direction. So just like this month, we've been pretty much going down the list just with the live lectures. There is this lab task review, which introduces all the lab tasks, how they're supposed to function, and a couple of things to look out for while you're attempting them. So I definitely just wanted to make sure that was pointed out. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.